Welcome back to Iron Archery North, guys. We're going to talk about a subject where I feel has been very controversial, and it can be very opinionated, is what I find. Coming from a person that has I shoot a lot of arrows, but that is growing up in a lot of these different aspects and stuff, and seen a lot of different things, and has personally seen and experienced troubles behind certain things, is what draw weights should I shoot? Okay, so it's a big spectrum. It's a huge spectrum. Okay, there's so many factors that fall into this, as far as what bow are you shooting, what is your intent to do, what are you trying to do, what do you want to try to accomplish. All those different things, they fall into this thing, and it turns into one of those confetti balloons where you have all these little pieces of confetti inside of it, and it pops, right? Which ones do you grab first? Okay, you just start sweeping them up, right? But it all comes down to, you got to blow the balloon up, right? And eventually it's going to pop, and you're either going to figure out two things. That was really cool, we should do this again, or that was a really bad idea. We should probably not get these anymore because it makes a giant mess, okay? So how that kind of affiliates with it is, what poundage should I shoot? I see it all the time. I've seen it today, yesterday, the day before. Videos on YouTube from numerous different channels. I think I've even seen some on Bow Disciples, Podium Archery, so many different channels I'm part of. But anyway, that I see them a lot, okay, and I see tons and tons of posts based on this exact subject. Should I shoot 80 pounds? Is it beneficial? Or, whatever, okay. Ultimately, it comes down to, what are you trying to accomplish? Why do you want to shoot 80? Okay. Am I saying not to shoot 80? No, I'm not at all. But a few things to look at is where you got to pick apart some of these guys that are shooting higher poundage, 80, 90, in some cases 100 pounds. Okay, which is very, very, very few bows out there that'll even touch 100 pounds. But in those aspects, is sometimes, like a good friend of mine, Jesse Brigantes with Bergie Bowsmith over in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm not sure exactly where he's at on his current bow right now, his PSE Mach 33, but I know his last bow, his PSE, I don't remember what model it was, but he was shooting a 77 pounder, but he twisted up cable, stuff like that, to get to that at the holding weight he wanted, is where he held the steadiest, where he shot the best. Okay, so those are aspects you got to look at too, is what are they trying to achieve and why are they doing it? Okay, is it saying, okay, hey, if I shoot higher poundage, get more holding weight, I can be steadier? Not all the time. Okay, and most people, it's gonna be a negative. You're not gonna hold steadier, which is partially because you're not used to it. Okay, but on Jesse's side of it, okay, he shoots a lot of arrows. He's been shooting a bow for a long time, and he has shot, I believe he shot semi-pro for, I don't know how long he did, but I'm pretty sure he shot some semi-pro stuff for a while. I don't know if it was as in 3D or say FIDA or what it was, but I never really dove into that subject with him. But anyway, he was targeting a specific holding weight, and most times going to a high holding weight, people are going to shoot worse. But in certain aspects, it benefits them. And that being said, if you get too much let off in the back, where when you get back in your valley, it just feels loose, like you're not holding anything, right? And everybody's like, well, that's awesome, that's what you want. Not all the time. Now, when you're sitting there bundled up in November, drawing back on a big whitetail, or a big bull elk, or big mule deer, whatever it could be, okay, and they hang up. Okay, now that let off is your best friend. Okay, I've been in those scenarios where a good example, my Elite Impulse 31 that I used to shoot years ago, I drew back on a big buck. I think it was late October, early November. Really cold morning, I believe. I mean, it was single digits, if not touching zeros. But I ended up holding that bow back for over a minute. I think it was like a minute and a half, somewhere in there. But yeah, some guys are like, why hold the bow back for 5 minutes? Well, that's cool. That's awesome. It really is. That's awesome. But when you put that aspect into the cold, you got layers on, all this stuff, you got adrenaline just pounding through you. I mean, a minute and a half feels like forever. Okay? And if I was shooting something with a less let off or more holding weight, it would have made that a lot harder. So going into those things, where kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit. Rewind a little bit to your holding weights and let offs. Is if you have a lighter let off, generally you're gonna see a little bit more pin flow. Okay, because you're not creating a sturdy triangle. Okay, your triangle from your anchor to your bow arm to your feet. Okay, there's a triangle there. Okay, now if you have a weak point in your triangle, it's going to feel loose. It's going to want to float. Now if you tighten that up, a little more holding weight where you're engaging your muscles more, okay, you're going to be steady. And the part of conditioning with those holding weights you're like, oh, my pin's all over the place. Well, your pin sits pretty nice and still, but you find that after, say, 4 or 5 seconds, it starts to wander more and more and more as your muscles fatigue. Okay, that's a conditioning thing. Okay, you're gonna get used to it the more you shoot. But in those things too, where are you gonna benefit from it, and how are you gonna benefit from it? And a lot of times too, where you find these higher poundage guys, 80, 90 pounds, shooting tack events, where you're shooting targets 120 plus yards. So me, as a 27.5 inch draw, I had to do a lot of swapping things around, and I had to kind of categorize all these things all in one to get everything to work to get a long sight tape. And it can get hard, okay? Especially if you don't have a super fast bow to begin with. It can be really hard. So, I mean, then you're falling into your peep heights, arrow weights, all these different factors to get sight tape farther. You know, how close your pins are to your riser, that's a big one too. If you're one of those guys that have your sight way out and you're kind of fighting yardages, suck that thing in, bring it in close. You're gonna get more yardage on your tape, hands down. Okay, and peep height's a big one too. Me, I set my peep, once I get a good sight tape on, where I'm pretty confident where everything is, then I'll set my peep height where my anchor is comfortable at 60 yards. When my peep is centered on my scope housing at 60 yards. Okay, yeah, your closer targets, say 20, 30, 40, okay, you're gonna feel a little bit more crammed, but not as much, or not too bad. But the thing is once you start dropping those longer ranges, we'll say 100 plus yards, your anchor's not falling down near as far. Okay, so now if you set your peep's really good at 20, and you start dialing down 100, 110, 120 yards, whatever, okay, you're going to find your anchor's really low. And you're going to fall into some things you might hear or run into is, do people shoot a fixed anchor or do they shoot a floating anchor? Where the fixed anchor is, that peep is here, or you're shooting a nose button and that's always where it goes, no matter the distance, and they're dialing their sight and they're moving their pin, but they're never moving their anchor. Now you're shooting a floating anchor, where as you're moving your pin, you're keeping your peep and your scope housing in line. Okay? People like different things. Generally speaking though, 99% of the time, most people are shooting a floating anchor. And where a lot of guys see like, well, my left and rights get really crazy once I start shooting farther, but we'll say like 20 to like 40 or 50, my left and rights are really good. I'm shooting really good groups and they start opening up. Okay, That's also a whole other thing behind your bow tune, how you're holding weights, your stabilizer setups, all these different things start playing into factors. Long range is the ultimatum of so many factors. Your bow tune, your form, your shot execution, it will kick your butt, okay, if you're not doing those things. And you're going to be really frustrated, like, I can't shoot these far, I can't shoot these ranges, okay? You can, you just got to pay attention to the factors and start working on it to become a better archer as far as shot executions, your form. Once you get those two things down good, now start worrying about your bow. Your tuning. Your tune should be one of your first things too, obviously, but how your bow setup is and all that stuff, and start playing with different stabilizer setups, more weight up front, more weight out back, all that different things, what holds better. Okay, once you get those things dialed in, you start shooting better groups out of long range. All these things inside 50, 60 yards and closer are like super nice and easy, okay? But going back to the poundage thing, where these long range targets are hard to reach for short draw people, okay? And I was one, and shooting 70 pounds, it was really hard to get past like 125, 130, it was really hard. And I mean, I was shooting down to 183 grain arrow. And the benefit of being short is I can get arrows pretty short. Okay, I was cutting my arrows down to 25.5 inches using half ounce, and that was pretty much how I achieved 130 yards. And so going forward is I wanted to start shooting some heavier weights where I could benefit from a speed factor, is obviously you're not going to get yardage without speed. But on the other side of it too is speed produces kinetic energy. Short draw guys, it's hard to get kinetic energy. Okay, a good amount. Where, for example, say I'm shooting 70, or we'll say I'm shooting 70 pounds, and whatever broadhead I might be using, and a buck comes in 25 yards broadside, and at the shot he turns, and I hit the shoulder blade, and it doesn't go through. Whereas, say, I could be shooting a heavier weight, and that same scenario happens, and I have enough kinetic energy to bust through that shoulder and still get an ethical kill and harvest the animal, okay? And that's a whole other factor people jump into, like, well, I shouldn't be shooting at shoulders. Well, it happens, okay? It happens all the time. If you've never hit a shoulder blade, you probably have not hunted for very long, okay? It will happen at some point. And it can either be like, oh, I'm glad I had it set up and I was able to get through it. Or it's going to turn into, dang it, I didn't get enough penetration. Okay, I've been there. And it haunts me. It's a haunting thing. And it's something that you think about for a long time. But is that going to be on my ultimatum of like, should I shoot a higher weight? No. Okay, that being said, shooting a higher weight, can you shoot the higher weight? Okay, that is what it ultimately comes down to. Can you actually shoot it? Okay, guys like, yeah, of course I can shoot it, whatever, but can you actually shoot it? Can you go out, shoot 50, 60, 100 arrows and not fatigue out and start groups going from this to this after 100 arrows? Okay, no. At that point in time, it is not beneficial for you at all. It's not. Okay, now if you can go out and shoot 100 arrows and still maintain good groups at whatever distance you're shooting, okay, yeah, it's beneficial. Okay, for me, rewind a little bit, going back to that, where I was saying before about what bow you're shooting and stuff like that. Now, if you're shooting a pretty aggressive cam design, a 10-pound difference is going to feel a bit more. Now, if you have a little more relaxed cam system, we'll say like the PSEs, the Mach series, the Mach 30 DS, the Mach 33, vice versa, with that EC2 cam, that's a really nice cam, and shooting heavier weights feel pretty nice. Okay, now for me, I shot a Lift RS at 70, it was pretty good. Shot it at 80, and I did not like that draw cycle at all. I did not. Mind you, that's one thing you get used to from shooting the bow, okay? But the way it dumped into the back wall, and just different factors. I didn't like it at all. Okay. Now the bow behind me is the Elite Envision. It came out in 2021. Personally, I feel like the bow is a little underrated for a few factors. Okay, as one, I run into a fair amount of people that'd be like, "Hey, you shooting the Envision?" Like, they're like, "Yeah." It's like, "I wish I had never sold mine." And I'm like, "You still find them, still buy them, they're still out there. You know, get one, whatever." But I find it hard to part with this because, for one, I shoot the bow very well. Two, I shot 70 pounds with this for a long time, and I've been shooting 70 pounds for a long time, 15, 16 years. But going back to that, where I'm very familiar with the draw cycle, how it feels, where the stiff points are, all those different things. So when I put the heavier 80 pound limbs on here, it came out to like 81.7, so we'll say 82 pounds. Okay, it draws really good at 80 pounds. And I was actually kind of surprised how well it actually draws back at 80. So for me, and I shoot it a lot, for one, just keep your muscles conditioned, all that good stuff, right? But in that aspect too, can you shoot the bow at 80? Okay, that's what it comes down to. Okay, I have no problem going out here, shooting 100 arrows. Okay, it's not a problem. So for me, it's beneficial. Okay, and in my aspect, I gained like 22 to 23 feet per second. I gained almost a little over 12 foot-pounds of energy. I went from 70 point something to just shy of 83 foot-pounds. That's a pretty significant jump. Okay, now 10, 12 foot-pounds, that ultimately very well could be a decision of that deer turning and you hit that shoulder blade and it's still pile and drive through that shoulder. Okay. Now there's other aspects that fall into all these different things as far as what broadheads you're shooting and diameters of broadheads. Bigger broadheads soak up a lot more energy, so higher weights, more kinetic energy, can be very valuable to get those big broadheads into that animal and push through whatever it might hit. Okay, I've been in those scenarios. I've hit shoulders in the past where I didn't get the penetration. Am I saying that going to an 80 pounder is a key roll? I'm going to punch through shoulder blades? No, I'm not saying that by any means. But when it comes down to it, how well can you actually shoot the bow? How well can you draw the bow back? Okay, just because you can shoot 100 times doesn't mean you can draw it back efficiently. Okay, meaning as efficiently, when I'm drawing back, I'm not hunkering down into it, yanking this thing back, then coming up into my anchor. If you're doing that, it's really hard to get a good platform of your form to be consistent. And not only, it's a lot harder on joints, all that different stuff. Okay, now, or you're just out here like this and you just got to reef it back. Okay, there's so many different things going on. You got to be able to draw the bow comfortably. Okay, now when you can draw a bow comfortably, we'll say 100 times, okay, now you're benefiting from it. You can efficiently shoot the bow and still stay consistent and shoot good groups. Okay, so for an example, on this Elite Envision, okay, obviously I got my arrow in here, I got my Stand Onyx with my safety pin in here. If you got one, use it, very beneficial. That way the only thing that can go wrong is your loop breaking. Okay, so shooting something efficiently, what you're looking at is you're not coming up in a weird spot like this and yanking it back. Okay, you're going to come up, you're going to set your shoulder, and then what you're going to do is you're going to draw through. Okay, you're not yanking down like this, you're not pointing at the sky to pull it down, whatever. Okay, you want to efficiently draw it back. Okay, you're setting, you're drawing back, and you're falling to your anchor. Okay, so you're efficiently drawing it back where you can benefit from a higher weight. I'm not back here yanking this thing back when it's 90 degrees outside. Okay, if you got to yank it back when it's 90 degrees outside, it's going to be ridiculously hard when it's cold. Okay, And so going back into that, where even as a downslope, you know, you're in a tree stand, right? You want to try to minimize movement. So if you can draw back down here, obviously then you don't have to draw back up here and then lean down into your shot, right? So when you're down here, you're drawing back straight to your anchor, okay? So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And if it is meant for you, is what it comes down to being. And there's so many of these things that are left out when people are ultimately being, should I shoot 80 pounds? Okay, but the words that should be implemented in these other videos as far as, you know, should you shoot 80 pounds? Well, yeah, whatever, sure. Here's the pros, here's the cons, here's your feet per second. Oh, I gained 25 feet per second. Cool, whatever. Yeah, it's beneficial. It feels good to drop back, okay? But ultimately what it comes down to, can you shoot the bow at 80 pounds? That is your maker, okay? If you can't shoot the bow at 80 pounds, meaning I can shoot 10, 15, 20 arrows and then really good and then my group starts to open up, okay? Probably should turn it down, okay? Condition your way up to it, okay? But if you can shoot a lot of arrows, still shoot consistent out as far as you want to shoot and still shoot good groups after 100 arrows, okay? Yeah, shoot the heavier weight. You're only benefiting from it. You're gaining feet per second, you're gaining energy, you're gaining yardage on those tapes. You're putting all the factors in your favor, okay? So hope this video kind of helps some of you guys out as far as different factors to play with and getting those longer sight tapes, such as, you know, like TAC event. We're going to Stone River, Michigan up here in August for TAC, and I'm excited. And by going to this setup, I mean, as a short draw person, I'm pushing 145 yards off of a 405 grain arrow. Not super crazy, you know, but 27-inch draw, 27.5-inch draw, I'm not going to play with that one bit. So, but hope it helps you guys out. And until then, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we just keep helping you out and giving you good advice and shoot better groups.